I have in the studio with me Chris Hillyard, and we're going to be talking about the anniversary of the Roade Railway cutting. See, look, I told you I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it again this week, and it's not good. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Good morning.
There we go. Now your mic is on. Good morning.
Good morning to you, sir.
So this is an event that's celebrating the Victorian engineering of this railway cutting.
It is, yes. Began construction in 1835 and was finished in 1838.
And what is the significance of this cutting?
It was one of the major engineering challenges that the London and Birmingham Railway and Robert Stephenson had in overcoming the geological landform. That and Hunsbury Hill Tunnel in the north of the county and one or two other structures were the major challenges to get for completion, and road cutting was the final link. It took 4.5 years to build, which was done with explosives and wheelbarrows effectively, and massive undertaking. 5,000 navvies were in the area, which was a massive impact on a rural community of that time.
So in a way, I mean, not only did it shape the railway system, but it shaped the community.
It shaped the community. Throughout the village evolved around the railway, and that evolution has continued from day one, socially and economically, and the impact of the navvies with the lawlessness and crime and that brought along with it, and because of no health and safety rules in those days, the amount of deaths and disasters which happened in its construction are a major part of the village's history.
Do we have the records of like how many people lost their lives to make this?
We know that 29 people died at Hunsbury Hill Tunnel, which was a massive undertaking in the north of the county. From newspaper records which we've trawled through, the number is not definitive. However, one of the engineers was called before Parliament at the time to explain the considerable loss of life that was undertaken, that happened that road, and during the cutting. And when asked by the committee of the reasons for the amount of fatalities, he said that he didn't have a figure, but the figure was considerable.
Wow.
So
was it because they didn't want to give those figures, or do you think they really didn't know those figures?
I think at the time labour was expendable, and
as it was probably all around the world around that time.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, I mean, that's what progression looked like back then. It doesn't look like that now, but in order to progress, we had to make these sacrifices. Well, I shouldn't say we had to. We didn't have to, but we did. Because like you said, life was expendable, labor was expendable. It was it was you know, something that people didn't take into consideration because they didn't need to. A lot of them were the rich, the wealthy, the ones who were financially backing this. They just wanted to get it done at the expense of other people.
Yes.
And do we have any, we don't have any of the names, we don't have any records, because there's probably some people that still live around in the area that have those ancestors that worked on there and possibly died in there.
Yes, we've amassed quite a considerable list of the unfortunates, shall we call them, and one of the first ones was a chap called John Venimore, who was a stonemason, and he was working on a structure in the cutting which collapsed. He sadly died, left a wife and small children, and in Road Church there is a tombstone in the graveyard, which his colleagues actually don't put some of money to commemorate him, and it's actually got on their, you know, subscribed by his colleagues, blah blah blah, in his memory. So there are links to try and find out who these people were, and yes, some of the navvies back in the 1830s and again in the 1870s and 80s when the cutting was deepened and widened for the Northampton Loop, those families stayed, or some of those families stayed in the village.
Well, I can imagine. And what at this at this exhibit? What are you exhibiting? What are some of the things that you have prepared for people who come to look at this?
Well, we've got the model of the cutting with the basically interactive display boards, which we've got certain criteria which we focused on, which will give people an insight. We're looking at the accidents and incidents and derailments which happened. We're looking at the impact on the local gentry, because there was a massive impact on fox hunting, because it cut through the runs of the gentry when they used to chase the foxes. So the foxes knew the escape route was to head for the railway, because the horses basically and the hounds, they
couldn't cross it.
Couldn't cope. Lawlessness and crime, the impact of the navvies on the village, the engineering challenges.
Yeah, because we are talking about Victorian times. Like you said, it was done with explosives and wheelbarrows.
This is it.
And on people's backs.
It was literally horsepower.
Yeah.
You know, in its crudest form. Yes.
It's an amazing feat.
It is. Over 1 million tons of spoil was removed.
Where was it removed to? Do we know?
Yes, a lot of it was used to fill in the hollows, if you will.
Right.
As the undulating land around Roade.
To level everything out.
To level it off, because the ruling gradient at the time was 1 in 300, because that's all the locomotives could cope with because of their basic engineering. Any steeper gradients and they couldn't cope, so that was the ruling gradient of the whole line. So the line was effectively built to that standard. So the hollows were filled in, and some of it was spread on the local fields and around on the land. So, you know, it was all disposed of.
Now, I had posted that St. John's actually was a railway station at one point. I posted a picture on Facebook showing the old railway station. I actually circled where we're sitting right now is really just a few meters away from where the track used to be. Why are these railways, why were they dismantled?
Post-Second World War, the railways were nationalised in 1948. There was no money around. The railways after the Second World War were effectively run down, worn out, tired, and Dr. Beeching was brought in to rationalise the railways, which was needed. Some say he overdid it, but I think it was needed at the time. And the branch lines, which were like the tributaries to the river, which were low-income streams, effectively, and of course the ever-growing popularity of motor transport, lorries and cars, with deliveries going by road rather than coming to little goods yards. That was the impact, and it wasn't cost-effective to keep them going. Now we see that, probably 60 years later, some of these lines are coming back into life again.
Yeah, I'm sure it would have eliminated a lot of the traffic that we have today.
Indeed.
Can you stay with us for a little bit, Chris? I want to ask you some more questions, but I got to play some more music.
No worries.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you.
Undiscovered Northampton, sponsored by the Inquirer magazine. News, culture and sport for Northamptonshire.
If you missed what our last break, I've been speaking with Chris Hillyard. If you're a history buff or a train buff, you like your history, especially about things in and around Northampton, Chris Hillyard is in the studio. We've been talking to him. He's from the Roade Local History Society. Now, you have a big event coming up. When is it?
It's on the 8th and 9th of September as part of Heritage Open Days, 2 weekends over the 2 weekend, that weekend and the following weekend. But it's on the first weekend, our exhibition.
Okay, and is it, how much does it cost to get in?
It's free.
Oh, that's
absolutely
great.
Free.
And you were saying that there's a model of the cutting. How big is the model?
It's 14 feet long by 3 feet wide, and it should have been 48 feet long to be representative to scale, but we had to make a few concessions. But it is.
Well, even at 14 feet, how long did that take to make?
We estimate 2,000 hours.
Wow. That's amazing. And then you have another model coming in as well.
We have other models coming in to complement the display from Northampton and District Model Railway Club, a representation of Castle Station, fully operable. Narrow gauge railway modelers. There's the event's changing over the 2 days. There's various things coming and going, but there's lots of models coming in, and models of old London and Birmingham railway stock from the 1840s that are so realistic and accurate that they are a pleasure to look at.
Wow. And then you said there was a bus.
Yes, as part of the Heritage Open Days theme, we've engaged it's Northampton Transport Heritage, which are a group which preserve old buses, omnibuses and the like, and they're involved with ferrying people around between the different events in the area. We're on the bus route, so if anyone from Northampton would like to come out to a free event, I don't know if there's a bus fare, but I'm sure they'd accept a donation, and the buses are running frequently throughout the 2 days.
And then what else is the event covering? I mean, it's showing off about the cutting. You said it was going to be representative of the women who were involved. Yes,
part of the Heritage Open Days themes this year as a non-specific theme, but we incorporating it is the first one is good health. So we've got we're running cutting tours with guides, because you can walk across the bridges around the cutting. There'll be the Ramblers Association and the Health Walk people are coming in to provide the guides and to do the talks. And also the other theme is extraordinary women, and through the local church there's a display going around, and we're going to engage that for the exhibition as well. So there'll be something that's like a suffragette thing, and it's looking at women of prominence throughout time and up to the suffragettes.
And then what about for children? Is this something that children would enjoy?
We have the local group, the Rascals group, the coordinators of that we've got a full programme of things for the children on the Saturday. And on the Sunday, there's some other groups coming in from the library and a potential new village hub we're considering, which is going to be called Road Junction, which has got it's going to be a community hub as part of the library. They're coming in. It's partly to get put themselves on the map and to engage with people. This is what's going on. Various other things. Local history societies coming along with their Blisworth, for instance, because that Blisworth History Society, Blisworth was just down the line. They were the next stop, so to speak, and their village was impacted as much as Roade on the coming of the railways.
And we'll have some government officials there. Who else will be attending?
We will have the chairman of the Transport Trust to unveil the Red Wheel, which is the cutting's been accredited with, which is for engineering excellence of the time. It pretty much mirrors the blue plaque you see on houses around the country where famous people lived.
Right.
Ours, I think, is the 102nd one to be awarded, so there's not many around, and that usually brings in a fair bit of media attention. We've already engaged attention from the railway media. They're interested in that, and the model itself is going to be entered into a national competition, which is being run by the London and North Western Society and one of the prominent railway modelling magazines, which that'll be in February. So it's an ongoing thing. We hope to take it around various places for exhibitions. It's been a labour of love, effectively.
So we've already posted where people can get more information on our Facebook page, but I'm sure that you have a website if somebody wants additional information.
Yes, someone Googles Roade Local History Society, our website will pop up.
Okay.
And we're on Facebook, and it's at 180th anniversary of road cutting. There's a dedicated page there, or there's a page called Road Remembered, which is where the community posts an awful lot of heritage photographs from days of yore.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. It's been very interesting, and I will be planning on attending because I'm just absolutely intrigued. I feel very fortunate to be living in and around the Northampton area. I just think that we're so full of history, and there's just so many events that have transpired here that have shaped the whole country. And I think this is one of them. So thank you very much for coming in.